Kyle writes in, he says, hello, could I have receipts for Rob's claim? Specifically, the claim about Judah the Prince writing the oral Torah or editing it orally and then repeating it. I think this would be helpful knowledge for my community. And go.
That's awesome. I love that phrase. Thank you, Kyle. Can I have receipts for that? It's like accounting terminology. So if he emails us, I can send a link that might be helpful. But basically, long story short, we have in the, I think, 9th, 10th century, we have a famous rabbi from Babylon. So this is after the era of the Talmud, but before like all the medieval commentators like Rashi and Rambam, etc. And his name is Sharira Gaon, and he gets letters from all over the world, the Jewish diaspora, from Egypt, from North Africa, back to Babylon, and they're asking him questions. So these are Jewish communities that are like trying to live a halakhically disciplined life, according to the rabbinic tradition. But they have questions. It's kind of like an early Rob and Caleb show where people email questions. They write him letters and they say, hey, where did the Mishnah come from? Like, where is this? It's not in the Bible. A good question for today's internet, right? But this is over 1,000 years ago. And we have 2 copies of his letter that were preserved in different cultural milieus, but they don't agree. One version of Sharira Gaon's letter says that Yehuda Hanasi, that's Judah the Prince, actually wrote out the Mishnah. And the other version that comes down says that he composed it, but he composed it in his heart, like as a memorized composition. And then he taught that to other people and made sure they memorized it accurately. Ask Caleb about memorization. He knows that. And then passed it on. And then only later, generations down the line, was it actually written. So within rabbinic tradition itself, stemming from this epistle of Sharira Gaon, it's a split answer. However, if we look at Rambam, that is Moses Maimonides, in his commentary on the oral Torah, it's actually not it's kind of a commentary. It's actually a recodification of the oral law. He, in his introduction, he talks about how from Moses all the way down, it was the what's called Torah Sheba'al Peh, oral Torah that is on the mouth, was transmitted exclusively from teacher to disciple, all the way down. And only occasionally, down that historical timeline, individual rabbis would write down little notes for themselves to help them memorize and help them learn the material. But those were only for personal use, and that they weren't preserved as scripture or anything like that. It was just like you attended a lecture, you made some little notes, and then those disappeared in history. So Rambam's idea of the conception of the transmission of oral Torah over the generations has a little bit of element of writing, but it's never the main deal. It's never authoritative. It's always personal notes of lecture attendees, basically. Then he says it all changes with what he says, Rabbeinu HaKadosh, our holy rabbi, who is Judah the Prince in his view. From Moses all the way down, it was oral. But because people were forgetting the Torah, now this is around the year 200, right, roughly. So this is over a century, almost a century and a half past the destruction of the temple. And Judah the Prince, living somewhere in Galilee, according to Rambam now, actually composed in a book and codified, basically made a handbook of all the oral tradition, because it was being forgotten, because students were few, Israel was not in control anymore, there was no temple, and there was a threat of it being lost.
Thank you so much for watching this video. Tell us your thoughts on this subject by leaving a comment in the comment section. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and enable those notifications. And we'll see you in the next video.